Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, A-M-P-I-R-E. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. In a minute, I'll be joined by Washington Commander safety Jeremy Reaves. This is a guy I've long wanted to have on this podcast because I think his story is very interesting to tell, and just the path he's had to travel to get to this point, a lot of things he's had to overcome now, including an injury. But to me, it's what separates him and why he's in the NFL at this point is because the mindset and the approach he took to traveling his journey. So that's why, like I said, a lot of wisdom here. And so I just want to bring him on because I just enjoy talking to him. I think you're going to enjoy listening to what he has to say. So I'll get to that in a minute. And then also, I'm going to be back the next several days and leading into next week with free agency because it starts on March 13th. And speaking of which, Jeremy will be a free agent. However, I do believe he will be back. Now, when that happens, I don't know, but I do believe he will be back. And I do ask him about that. As far as the team goes, I do not expect them to make the big splash signings that people hope or think they might make because of the salary cap space they have. I do expect them to be active. And so by active, it could mean a lot of, the secondary type players, but just, a lot of get somebody here described like get a lot of good, solid players because they do need to fill more than a few holes, especially along in the starting lineup. So that's what I'm expecting, but we'll get into that more as free agency draws even closer, like Thursday and Friday. I'll be talking about this too. So, but before we get to that point, here's my conversation with Washington Commander safety, Jeremy Reaves. Trades, free agents, quarterbacks, and all kinds of adventures await the Commanders this offseason. Looking for an adventure of your own? The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring has you covered. The country's largest ropes course and zipline park, located in Montgomery County, Maryland, is now open. Named Best Amusement Park and Climbing Destination in the DMV 2 years in a row, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is perfect for birthdays, corporate outings, groups, and families. With challenges anywhere from beginner to expert, there is something for all skill levels. Anytime you're thinking about reaching new heights, make sure you know before you go. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is the only ACCT accredited park in Maryland or Virginia. Staying on the ground? Give axe throwing a try. You can throw at traditional targets or play any number of interactive games. You can even upload your own image. So there you have it, folks. Climbing, ziplining, axes, food, and bonfires right in your backyard. Reserve your adventure today at www.theadventurepark.com/Kime. That's www.theadventurepark.com/Kime. Well, first, Jeremy, it's good to see you. And let's get an update first on your health. How are you feeling?
Good to see you too, my man. I think the last time I saw you actually was the exit meetings after the end of the season. I flew back up for, but health is great, man. I'm at the 6.5 month mark, like physically, but I'm only probably about 4 months out of surgery. Really, honestly, it's like 3 because I was non-weight bearing for a month. So this is really like the 3rd month, and my body's at like the 6-month mark. I'm running, I'm cutting, I'm doing all my normal Revo stuff. So I feel great, just getting back to it.
So what's the timetable then for you? For what did they tell you about for the timetable for return to full duty, full activity, and all that?
So like as terrible as it was that I got hurt, it was unfortunate it was that I got hurt. Like the timing of it was probably the best time it could have happened. In October that's happening, and then so it'll put me the 9-month mark, which usually after ACL tear, depending on like this is just like the baseline. Obviously everybody's body's different. Some guys come back in 6, some not 7. Um, the 9-month mark is when they usually let people go back to full play, right? That'll be July, so that'll be for me. That'll be right when we come back for camp. So it's as crappy as it was that it happened. It was like it set me up where I have enough time to where I don't feel like I have to rush back, but at the same time, like it'll put me at the right due date. So I think I'll be back well before that. Honestly, just me knowing myself and everything. So and where I'm at. So that's pretty much the
How tough
timetable.
is it to enter free agency coming off that injury?
You know, hey, this is my first free agency, really. So I'm kind of learning as I'm going, but honestly though, it's not because as I've learned in this process that I've been in here, you know, the last couple months that like I said, the timing of my injury, you know, 6 months puts me in April. That's when we report back.
Mhm.
So pretty much in April, I'll be able to do everything but non-contact. I'll be able to do everything but contact drills, which we don't do contact in OTAs anyway. So it's like it didn't really set me back much because of when it happened and, you know, really how my body responded to everything. But at the same time, there's gonna be that niche of like, oh, like he got hurt last year. You know, we don't know if he's gonna come back the same guy. You know, there's that. That's obviously gonna be said and thought, which is fine. You know, I think if anybody knows, I think you guys know
Yes.
off of a setback how I come back off of that. So, you know, it's been interesting to see, you know, and hear and talk to my agent how this process has been, and it's been really good. You know, we've heard nothing but positive things, so that's encouraging.
So obviously, you have a lot of fans here of this team.
Right.
What do you think about? I mean, I know like there's been some dialogue at least. So what do you think about returning here?
I told you guys when I left, I feel like I started my career in Philly, right? You know, that's where I came out of college, but um everything I built's been in Washington. You know, how I've kind of went through my trials and had to fight and get back up, get knocked down again, and everything's been in Washington, you know. So like I've built something for myself there that, it's hard to just up and leave that, like that plays a role. And uh that's kind of where I've, you know, made home. That's where I've made my home. And so um the dialogue's been great. You know, I got the chance to, chat with, AP. He told me to call him AP and DQ. So I got a chance to talk with AP and DQ, and we talked for a while, and it was just like, it was very constructive conversation. They reached out and, they told me the emphasis of, how much they like me. And, I reiterated them, how much I wanted to be a part of it, and so the conversation went great. I'm excited about it, and like I said, like we'll see. I'm letting my agent handle all that stuff, and he gets back to me, and we'll go from there.
But I will say, Jeremy, if they're letting you call them AP and DQ, that's a pretty good sign.
Right. I will give them a big shout out because they got on the phone. They're like, hey, we heard your name is Revo. So like they did their research too and everything. So that was pretty cool. I've never been in a situation. This is my first time being in a situation, honestly, where like I really felt like I was like honestly wanted, because the whole time I was really fighting just to get there, right? Like I was fighting just to get to the point. And then, for a new GM and a new head coach to come on and take the time to call me, that says a lot, about, them, and also, kind of the work that I've put in, what I've done to get to this point. So, that spoke volumes to me. I was very impressed with them, and, they're genuine, solid people, I can tell.
And it's funny because after Dan Quinn was hired, I think shortly within a week or so, you tweeted out something about how like you were pretty excited about some of these moves. Why is that? Because like that was before I'm guessing that was before they talked to you.
Obviously, like everybody in the league talks, right?
Right.
So like we all have buddies on different teams, and they played on, with these guys before these guys before. So, you ask, I'm going to free agency, but like I said, like I would like to get something done in Washington. So, I asked guys around the league, and, they had nothing but positive things to say about all of them. Everybody that's been brought in has been nothing but positive, And so for a guy, that at the end of the day, I just want to win, like I want to I want to win. I want to be a part of like a winning culture where, that's expected, not just like we want that. That's expected. And, these dudes are the real deal when it comes to that, man. Like they're straight shooters. They shot it to me straight when we did have the conversation on the phone. We talked for about 20, 30 minutes. They shot it to me straight, and at the end of the day, as a player, like that's what you appreciate the most is just like, straight shooters, and dudes that, they appreciate hard work. One of the things they pointed out was like they knew my journey. They knew everything that I've been through, and they've seen how I've had to battle my ass off and where I've gotten to this point, and they like, you a dog and we want dogs. And so, that was my type of language. And hearing, defensive coordinator, Joe Witt talk, how he was talking about that kind of football, that was talking straight to me. I was in it.
I'm guessing you have it's almost like you have pads on behind you. You want to put them on right now.
Listen, I've been ready to play. The hardest part about this is being, I left DC in November to start my PT because I was ready to get to it as soon as I could. The hardest part about it was being sat down and having, to just watch everything from the side and not being able to do anything, and it was frustrating, it was hard, and it's honestly probably the most humbling experience that I've had, coming out the year I had before where I was just on cloud nine and then you get knocked right back down and just having to see all of this. I've missed genuinely, just like I tweeted the other day, just like I want an iPad and I want to just be able to just watch football. And it feels good to just get on an interview with you and talk about football. I feel like I haven't done this in a year, and I'm excited. I'm genuinely, I feel like a kid putting on the pads for the first time, and this is it's very exciting.
It's funny too, because one of the things, and I always tell people you're probably one of the best locker room guys, just in that locker room. And I always laugh
appreciate that.
I always tell people if there's one other player in there, Jeremy will still be in there because it just seems like you like being in that atmosphere. And and it's and not some people, some people get in and out, right?
Right.
Why is it why is it so important to you to, I mean, again, you are a presence in there, but you're also, seem to really like being in there around the other guys. And it might be silly to say that, but not everybody's like that.
No, I mean, 100%, I had our old DB coach, Chris Harris, used to say something all the time, he was like, you get to play a King's game or you get to play a child's game for a King's ransom. Put the money aside, damn the money. Yes, it's great. That's how I survived. But at the end of the day, this is the same game I've been playing since I was 5, and in reality, the best moments that I've had in my life have been in the locker room, all the accomplishments and everything that I've been able to accomplish in, football throughout my life, I think the thing that I'll take away from it when it's all said and done is just the relationships you build in the locker room, you sit there and you get to talk with your boys before, practice or meetings. And it's not just about ball. It's about life. I've grown as a man just being around, these guys and being able to talk, life. And that's the best part about it, honestly, is just, you build those relationships with people and, it's at the end of the day, you get to go out there and you get to compete. I think if you put anybody in my shoes, they would love what I did, and so I wake up every day I'm thankful, because also I know what it took for me to get here. I had to crash and crawl and, freaking fight my way to where I got, every year, every day. It wasn't really it was a yearly thing. It was every day I was waking up am I going to have a job tomorrow? Right. So the approach to it was different. It's just you got to make every day count. Every day has got to mean something to you. And it has, and so to get to this point where I'm at, I think the hardest part about me getting hurt last year was not being in a locker room and not being with the guys. That was the biggest thing for me. It's just I wanted to be around football so bad. But at the same time, I had to take care of myself. And that was a battle.
And that's why I asked, because I mean, I seriously, there aren't a lot of guys over the years who I think enjoy being in there as much as you have. And, even if it's just playing cornhole.
Right. Yeah.
Doing things like that. People don't realize how much a part of the locker room, that culture that can be, little things like that.
Right. And it's always something that, when I came into the league, I said that when I came into anything, period, college, when I went to South Alabama, right, it was a fairly new program. I always told myself, with this whole transfer portal thing and how kids was like, I want to leave something better than I found it, period. If I can do that, then I did my job, right? And so my approach to college and then professional is like, I want to leave something better than when I found it. So when I leave and I come back one day and I bring my family here, it's like, hey, like, I was fortunate enough and I was blessed enough to be a part of this. Like, I got to see what it became. Like, I look at my university now and like, what it's become. They got a new on-campus stadium and an indoor, and it's like, I go back and I see my pictures on the wall, and it's like, it's cool, yeah, the accomplishments and everything, but the big part about it is like we helped build something, right? And like that's the beautiful part of it. It's like it might not directly affect me, I might not see the fruits of the labor, but if the next guys can behind me, then like that's what it's about at the end of the day.
And the other thing is too, and you've said this, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, you're used to more climbing to get to the mountaintop than actually being at the mountaintop.
Yeah.
I mean, like do you ever wonder, like, I think you're built that way, right? It's a mentality. Yep. But do you ever wonder, like, hey, can I have just 5 minutes up here? Or do you like that journey that much that it's like, it's not going to bother me?
I've been saying process over product since I was probably like 15 years old. And, I at the time, I'm not going to lie, as a 15-year-old kid, I didn't really get it until I got to be an adult and I got to really understand what the process meant, right? It's like, for me personally, I love, like, this, for me, the knee thing, as crazy as this sounds, like, it's going to sound wild because nobody wants to get injured, right? And I didn't want to get injured. But at the same time, like, it gave me that hunger, like that real, like, get back to the basics hunger, right? Of just having to learn how to walk again, having to learn how to run again, having to learn how to cut again, right? And take it back to like the fundamentals of like when I was a child, right? And so everything about that process has been beautiful because it's really showed me just the appreciation of like, man, you get to put your feet on the ground and walk. Somebody didn't get to do this today, like it's a blessing. Every day is a blessing. So as far as that, I've always loved that. I've always been that way, like I've always just liking to go, like I grew up like that. My father he instilled that in me. He was a big, powerlifter back in the day, and I guess got to saw how he went through his process of that. And I've enjoyed just my own process and my own way of having to just fight, because it just makes the journey that much sweeter when you finally do get to the cusp, and you get to that point where you look back. I look back now sometimes to like 2019 and 20, where I'm like, damn, like I went through all this. I'm like, there's not a lot of guys that stay on the practice squad for 4 years. Like, that doesn't happen. Right. But I just kept battling, right? And when I had to show up, I showed up, and I kept doing it over and over and over again. And then, I always say the work always pays you back, so it's always been a part of me. I've loved it. And, being at the top has been, it was very surreal for me. But, I feel, it's weird as this sounds, like I feel comfortable having to go get it again.
But if you embrace process, it's not daunting for you, right? I mean,
right. No, it becomes the everyday routine. Like, right. It's like every year before like we start training camp, I'll write down what I want to do for the year. Right. The reality of it is like, it might not come to fruition that year, but like, if you got this process in your mind of how you want to get it done, at some point it's going to come through for you. Like you saw in last year when I went to the Pro Bowl, I said that in 2019, right? I said I was going to go to the Pro Bowl in 2019, right? That's years later where it finally happened, but I went through my entire process to get to that point. So now it's just a different process, right? It's like, I'm going to show everybody that I'm going to be a better player now than when I got hurt, before. I'm going to come back stronger from that. I'm going to check off these goals, and then when that happens, it happens, and I'm going to keep busting my ass to it. But it's never daunting because if it's a part of you, then it's routine for you, right? Getting up and working your ass off every day just becomes a part of who you are.
When you write down in 2019 Pro Bowl, what is there any part of you that said, like, what leads you to say that? And because like I appreciate that. I think that's the best way to go, right? But someone else might like, why would you put that at that time? Because at that time you're still fighting for a roster spot.
Nobody knows who I am at this time. Nobody, right? Like, you guys know because I pop up and play here and there, but like outside of that, like nobody really knows me, But at that time, that's what I believed, like I knew who I was before really anybody else did, right? And if you don't believe in yourself, like nobody else will at the end of the day, like in your job, right? If you didn't believe
Yeah.
that if you were going to be one of the best at what you did, like you weren't going to be it and nobody was going to believe it, right? So I used to say it all the time, right? And people didn't believe it. They're like, oh man, like you a practice squad guy, like you didn't get drafted. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you got to get through this. You got to make that team first. And I'm just telling people, like, I'm doing interviews. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be in the Pro Bowl. And I believe that about myself. I knew the caliber of player I was. I've always been this guy. That this is always who I've been. I've always been a great football player. I just needed a chance. And when I got a chance, that's what happened. So it's just how I viewed myself and how I believed in myself.
It's funny too, because one of the things always when you're not a big guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was going to be held against you. But when
Right.
they keep bringing you back, you also know there's something that they're
something.
seeing. They're seeing
Mm-hmm.
it, right? It's just a matter
Right.
of time, right?
Right. And I say this to young guys all the time. It's like you got to pay your dues to the game, whatever that may be. Sometimes that might be watching from the side. Sometimes that might be teaching the next guy who actually is playing, right? Like the year Cam got there, I didn't play a lot until the end of that year. But I remember just that year, like me giving Cam nuggets about, this is what I'm seeing, or I'm seeing that, or like this is in this formation, this is what you might get, so you can play aggressive to that, right? That was my dues to the game, and I had done that pretty much my entire career. For honestly, like I remember when Shays was playing with us, and like I would be watching from home during the games. Like I would text him after the game and be like, "Hey, I saw this during the game. Like this is what we could have, like this is what you made it could have done." And I just did those nuggets throughout the year. But at the same time, like I'm helping other people. Like I'm helping myself at the same time. It's been a wild journey, honestly, because it's like in hindsight, looking at it, like I didn't really, that's just some who I am. Like I'm gonna try to help the next person, but at the same time, like you're helping yourself too. So when you pay your dues to the game, the game always pays you back, right? It always will. Like what you put in, you're gonna get out of it. That's everybody says it, but it's a true statement. You can look at my life, and how I've had to approach it. Because like you said, like me getting cut all those times, but then me getting brought back, like there was always something there, and they saw it. It's just a matter of timing, and sometimes the time isn't when you want it to be. But at the same time, it's like that doesn't mean you just quit and roll over just because it's not happening when you want to. Like you gotta stay in the trials. Like that's everybody. Everybody's gonna go through their humps and their downfalls and their struggle. That's just how the business works and how life works. But you just gotta keep getting up and fighting every day.
And I'm going to ask this because like when you have embraced your journey,
Mm-hmm.
do you like 100% that like, hey, I love this is the journey I had to travel because it made me this, and this, or do you ever look and say like, I wish I would have had just a little bit different of a journey just to be at this point, or do you just say like, this is it, I love it because it's made me this?
I firmly believe like comparison is the thief of joy. And comparing to somebody else's journey and how they had to get it, that takes away from where you're at and what you're experiencing and everything, and just being in the moment. Um, but the human side of me, yeah, like, do I wish I would have been a drafted guy? Yeah. Would my journey have been easier? Yeah, definitely, probably. Would I have had more opportunities sooner? Yeah. But that wasn't what God had for me, and that's fine. That's okay with me because I knew that my journey wasn't only going to affect me, but it was going to be able to touch other people. And the amount of people talking about adults, guys in the league, younger guys that have looked at my story and been like, dude, like the way you've approached it and the way you've went about it has changed my entire thought process of how I deal with like adversity and like going through the struggle. That's resonated with me more than wanting to be the first a day 2 pick or day 3 pick and all that stuff, because like it goes to show, like Dan Quinn calls me, he's like, hey man, like I've seen your journey and I've seen how you've had to just like get it out the mud and like you're a dog, and like that affects people, right? Like people have an appreciation for people that have to go bust their ass to get it, right? If it's not handed to you, you got to work for it. Like it means something more to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's just what it's meant to me. And so as much as, the human side of me would wish it would be different, like my heart doesn't never, I would, if I had to do it over again, I'd walk it the same way. As crazy as that sounds, I'd walk it the same way.
How much did that video last year after the Pro Bowl, the announcement, the when they the way they told you, how much do you still hear about that, and how did that resonate with others? Because that was powerful.
Man, I was in the grocery store literally like 2 days ago. Because I live where I'm from, right? So
Okay.
like obviously people know me here, but like you compare last year to every year before, like people knew I was in the NFL, but they didn't know like what was going on really. The response to that, like still to this day, like I'm still having people congratulate me on the Pro Bowl, like I made it last year again. Like it was an impactful moment because I think everybody just in life resonated with that moment of like you bust your ass, you work hard, you get knocked down, you get back up, you fight again, and then you finally get there, and it's just like that was just a real raw emotion moment of like everybody being able to relate to that in some way or some form, right? And so, like I said, like people appreciate hard work, right? It's just something that as humans we all can kind of identify with, and just be like, I get that, like I understand that because I've had to go through that, or I'm going through that at the time right now. So like the response to that, and even still to this day, is like it's nuts, like I anywhere I go, if I even go to the store, to the gas station, somebody's gonna know, about that Pro Bowl video, or they saw the ESPN special, like a year after that, and everybody's just like very, very, appreciative of that, and it's very humbling for me because it's like, I'm doing it the right way.
You talk about the humbling too, because
Mm.
is it hard when you finally get that point? Do you have to remind yourself, don't get comfortable because I want to stay here? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like when you're running that journey, like it never ends.
Never. It doesn't. And that's the part that I think a lot of people lose sight of, is just because you get to the mountain. Just because you get to the top of the mountain, that doesn't mean it's over, right? Like there's a mountain, and then there's Mount Everest, right? Like you gotta climb a higher mountain peak than the one that you're at right now, right? And so it really wasn't, because the approach that I had to this year, man, like I was on a pace. It's wild, when I got hurt, Nate Katcher told me, he was like, dude, you're on a pace to have double the numbers that you had this year or last year. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, man, like you had 7 tackles in really 4 games. Like I think the top guy this year finished with like 14.
Yeah.
So like I was just really hungry to do it again and prove like this wasn't no fluke. This is who I am, right? Like this is not just a one-hit wonder kind of thing. Like, no, I'm going to keep showing up, and I'm going to keep showing up. And even when you try to double me, or even whatever you try to do, like, I'm going to keep showing up, and you just can't stop me. So nah, it didn't create a complacent monster. I can tell you that much. I was pissed, and it was like, I just wanted to like prove everybody like, no, this isn't a fluke. Like, this is what I do.
I think it's hard to climb that mountain. I think it's harder to stay there.
Yeah, 1,000%. It is harder to stay there because at this point now, like in football terms, like you're getting game plan for now, right? Like it started a little bit the year before, but then that second year, like this year, it really started to like I'm getting double teamed, and I got like somebody spying for me, and like now you got to get really in a different tool bag. You got to find ways to win, and I was doing that like at a very high level, and so it made that. It made it, honestly, it challenged me because it made me have to really dig deeper to find ways to win and to be successful. And that was just a new challenge for me that I accepted, and I was like, hell yeah, bring it on. Like whatever y'all gonna do, hell, you can bring 10 guys about me. I'm gonna find a way to win.
And the funny thing is people don't realize even with special teams, when they're doing that, other guys are now free to go make plays. It's just like NBA. If you're doubling one guy, somebody else is open.
Somebody got a one-on-one.
Yeah.
Somebody got a one.
The other thing I want to ask you about too is we talked about this last year is, you have that list of when you were cut. You still have that, and where do you keep it?
Yeah, heck yeah, I got that. I got, it's they send you a letter, usually
Oh,
it's
the
like the
letter, that's right.
termination. It's the termination of contract. My dad's got it in his office in his files. I actually need to go get that with my W-2s. But yeah, it's just a termination or termination of contract. They tell you it's three things, or this injury, it's play wasn't up to what we saw as satisfactory. And then another one was like conduct detrimental.
Hmm.
And every year the check was on the, play wasn't satisfactory to, and that was just a reminder that like, yeah, ain't enough, and like whatever you thought was enough ain't enough. So you got to go harder, and so heck yeah, I kept those because it was just a reminder of, you know, I had to go bust my ass even more, and this is what, at the end of the day, this was the journey that I have, and I got to embrace it.
Did you keep those in your locker?
Nah, so in my locker, I used to have one in my locker. It was actually from the 2021 year when I got released after the 20 season, where I thought like, okay, maybe I climbed over this mountain. I got the 2021 one, and I kept that one in my locker for a while. But then when my mom passed, I put up, one of the letters that she had wrote me,
Hmm.
and then I had a letter in there from this kid named Tucker that I met actually in 2019 at camp in Richmond. He had you know a health problem that didn't, his legs were, he had to have several surgeries, right? And he was one of the guys that he told me like this was when I was nobody. He was like I look up to you, and
Hmm.
like basically he was telling me like he wished he could do what I did. And that puts into perspective of every day. Like no matter how shitty the situation might feel for me, like somebody got it worse, man, and it's people looking up to me for just motivation to keep going, even when it's tough, And so I kept that one in my locker really till this year. I got it. It's in my box with my cleats and everything, so it'll go up, in Washington or wherever I end up at.
That's pretty cool, and that's like when you can draw some sort of emotion or feeling from it or
Right,
reasoning, whatever, that it
right.
it can really help you.
Oh, 1000%. It's just it gives you more purpose and it gives you perspective, honestly, just on like your situation is never as bad as you think it is, right? And it's never as tough or it's never as hard. Like there's always light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to keep going, at the end of the day.
You wonder what all this means for you beyond football when you're, because at some point this all ends, right? But like
Correct.
when you approach it this way,
Mhm.
there's, I don't know, I just think it's like it sets you up for way beyond this game.
I mean,
And I'm
I
not trying to
like
rush you out of the game
no, no,
either.
no, 1000%. That's a real statement because when you get hurt, this is the first major injury I've ever had, right? So like when you get hurt, like you have to sit down for a long time. You have to think about things, right? And I had a I had a long time to think. I got hurt in October. I didn't really start walking till December. Hey buddy, you want to say hey
There
buddy?
you go.
Fuck out that's down, papa. Um but like it sat me down and I had to really think about life, right? And so I you know, always said to myself that like, what kept me in the business just as much as it was like potential and talent, it was character,
Hmm.
right? And character in life will take you a lot further than your talent will, because in today's society, like it's not a lot of that anymore. Like, right, character's not a trait that's very, it's not relished as much as it was, maybe when you were younger, or my parents were younger, right? And so that'll take me further than, anything. And so I've always prided myself on that because, it costs nothing and it takes no effort to just be a good human or try to your best. We all have faults. We all have our issues, right? That's what makes us human. But, it doesn't take anything to just be a good person, treat everybody with respect, be respectful, and do everything that you can out of a place of love, right? That doesn't take any effort. That's the one thing where it's like it's free, really. Um, and so, yeah, I've thought about that 1000%, and I've been asked to do all kind of different things, write a book, be a motivational speaker, get into coaching. I've heard all the different
I was,
type of avenues.
I was, I could see each one of those for you. I mean, but that's why I say, like, the way you embrace journey, process, and all that will serve you well after this game ends for you.
I appreciate that, man. It's I think if everybody, and don't get me wrong, like I have moments where like I have my human moments where I'm just like, this sucks, right? Like this is terrible. I think anybody who goes through any kind of adversity, they all have that. But it's just the ability to like have a conscious decision to be like, okay, yeah. My coach used to say it all the time. He's like, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Like embrace the suck. Period. Big shout out to Coach Pearson. This is when I was like a freshman or sophomore in college. He's like, embrace the suck. And I just think that as a society, if we could all do that, like we would be in a much better place as far as just approach to things, right? And at the end of the day, like nobody's gonna feel sorry for you, right? Like everybody's going through their own process and everybody's going through their own suck, whatever it may be. But just embracing it and being thankful, even though it's terrible right now for where you are, because when you look back on it, however long that may be, and you say like, I needed this to happen for me to be who I am today, not just as a person or not just as a player, but as a person as well.
Jeremy, man, listen, I appreciate your time. And the one thing I will say, like, I think this locker room can use you back, and I think it'd be great for this team to sign you back. You're one of the last guys I'd ever worry about beyond this game because of this approach. So I think, that's a credit to you, but I just, that's why I've always appreciated when you're in there. So I appreciate you coming on.
No, and I appreciate you, man. I told you this when I left, like, you're one of the best at what you do, man. And, for guys like me, it's tough with the media and everything. Sometimes it could be twisted against you, and sometimes, that just is what it is. But, you're one of the guys that does it right, and I will always appreciate that and your approach to things and, how you just go about your business, makes me want to be a better pro in that aspect. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for saying that. But yeah, so hopefully we see each other again real soon. So
yeah. Hopefully so. That's the goal, man. So hopefully everything goes smooth.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Jeremy for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back with another episode on Thursday, so I'll talk to you next time.